Hello brain nerds, my name is Jace and welcome to the Big Brain Busters. So in this video I am going to look at the cestodes under our Parasitology series of videos in continuation to our videos under Helminthology. So please, I really urge you to check out my previous video on the introduction to Helminthology, which will give you a best overview, so that as we continue to this video you're going to have a clear picture of what we're talking about. Otherwise, at the end of this video I've also added some practice questions to see whether you've understood. With that being said, let's jump into it. So the term cestode is gotten from a Greek word which is kestos, which just simply means girdle or ribbons. And these guys are multi-segmented, dorsoventrally flattened, tape-like worms. I mean, you can tell this guy on my right side literally looks like a tape measure. And their size varies from a few millimeters to several millimeters. They can be that long, like 1 millimeter to 20 meters. Yeah, so I guess that's why they were named to be tape measures or something like that. Anyways, so the adult worms are found in the small intestine of humans, okay? And then these cestodes belong to the phylum Platyhelminthes and the class is Cestoda. All right, so this class Cestoda has got two orders under it. The first order is Pseudophilidia, whose suckers have a cup-shaped form, and then they have another order known as Cyclophilidia, whose suckers are shallow. All right. Okay, so now let's look at the systemic classifications of cestodes. So remember that under the class Cestoda we have two orders, Pseudophilidia and Cyclophilidia. In Pseudophilidia we have the family Diphylobothridae, then under that we have the genus Diphylobothrium and Spirometra. And in the species of the Diphylobothrium genus we have Diphylobothrium latam. Then in the order of Cyclophilidae, we have the family Tenidae, okay, or Tenidae, or however you would like to call it, and we have Hymenolepididae and Dipididae. Anyways, then we have the genus Tenia under Tenidae and Echinococcus under Tenidae. Then under the genus Tenia and Echinococcus, we have the genus Tenia having two species, Tenia solium and Tenia saginata, and the genus Echinococcus having Echinococcus granulosus. Then we have now in the family of Hymenolepididae, we have Hymenolepsis, and under the family Dipilididae, we have Dipilidium. All right. Then the species are Hymenolepsis nana and Dipilidium caninum. Okay, so now let's kick it up by talking about the general characteristics of cestodes. So an adult worm consists of three parts, which are the head or the scolex, the neck, and the trunk or the strobila. Okay, so now let me make mention of this. It is important to know the general characteristics of cestodes because it will be easy for you when we start talking about the individual species under what cestodes, because it is these same general characteristics that you'll be referring to when you start talking about the individual species, with just certain minor exceptions. So I would urge you that you know this by heart. Let's kick it up by talking about the head or the scolex and the neck. So talking about the head, remember that under the order cestodes, I said there are two, under the class cestodes rather, there are two orders, which are Cyclophilidia and Pseudophilidia. This is a Cyclophilidian parasite. So a Cyclophilidian parasite, its head contains a structure known as a sucker or suckers, and the number of suckers is dependent on the species. The function of the suckers is just simply to attach firmly to the mucosa of the host cell. Okay, then in addition, certain species contain an apical protrusion which is known as a rostrum, and this apical protrusion is able to be retracted back. In some species, this rostrum may or may not contain hooks. All right, so in this case my diagram shows that this rostrum contains hooks, and the function is just simply to hold tightly firmly to the mucosa of the host. That's it about the scolex of the cestodes under Cyclophilidian parasites. Now let's look at the neck. What's the function of the neck? So the neck has got stem cells that are responsible for regenerating the what? The proglottids. Now remember, the neck is just simply an intermediate part between the head and the body or strobila. So this guy, the body contains the proglottids, and it is the neck that contains the stem cells that are responsible for continuously regenerating the proglottids of the body. All right. Then now let's look at the pseudophilidian cestodes and that order. So instead of containing the suckers, the pseudophilidian scolex contains a longitudinal groove known as a bothria. Not so different in terms of functions to the sucker, it's also responsible for attaching to the host mucosa. All right. Okay, so now let's look at the trunk or the body or the strobila. Remember that the trunk is simply segmented into sections known as proglottids, and these guys are organized in such a way that the ones near the neck are immature. So these guys are immature proglottids, and then we have the mature proglottids, and then the ones at the end are gravid proglottids. Okay, so remember that cestodes are hermaphrodites or monoecious organisms, meaning that they contain both male and female reproductive organs. The immature proglottids, they have immature male and female reproductive organs, or in short, they are not completely developed here. Then the mature proglottids, right here in the middle, they contain both male and female mature reproductive organs. Then these guys at the end are gravid proglottids, which literally means that they are pregnant or they contain eggs in them. So gravid is a word that simply means heavy. Okay, so a more realistic diagram. So we have the head, the neck, then just behind the neck we have the immature proglottids that I've already explained, and then in the middle we have the mature proglottids that contain both male and female reproductive organs, and then here at the end we have the mature proglottids that are gravid, okay, which contain the eggs. Okay, so now let's look at the eggs of the cestodes. So don't mind my diagram. This is just used for visual purposes, and at least according to the description of the text I'm using. So the diagram may not be accurate, but I hope it gives you a better picture of what we're going to be talking about. So the eggs of cestodes contain a structure inside known as an oncosphere. This just simply means it is a hooked ball. This is because the embryo inside has a spherical structure with hooklets around it. All right, and these hooklets are of 3 pairs, meaning that this embryo has got 6 hooklets around it. That is why the other name of this embryo is known as a hexacanth embryo. Okay, so there are some differences between the eggs of the cyclophilidian egg and the pseudophilidian egg. The cyclophilidian egg has got 2 layers. Number 1, we have the eggshell. Number 2, it is the embryo form. Then while the pseudophilidian egg is covered by only 1 layer, which is the eggshell. Then the shape of the cyclophilidian egg is spherical, while that of pseudophilidian egg, it is ovoid. Then we have the cyclophilidian egg being embryonated from the beginning, while that of the pseudophilidian egg, it is unembryonated and it is passed in feces. Then the cyclophilidian egg are not operculated, while that of the pseudophilidian eggs are operculated. Then in terms of cilia, the cyclophilidian eggs are not ciliated, while that of pseudophilidian eggs, they are ciliated. Okay, so now let's look at the life cycle of the cestodes. So in general, cestodes complete their life cycle in 2 hosts, having a definitive host and an intermediate host. And for most tapeworms, the definitive host is the humans, but there are some exceptions for certain species, such as the Echinococcus granulosus, which is also known as the dog tapeworm, whose definitive host is the dog. All right, and the intermediate host is the human. Okay, then in Tenia solium, man is the ordinary definitive host, but some of the larval stages can also develop in the human body. Okay, so in as much as we have described the cestodes to having 2 hosts to complete their life cycle, there are some exceptions. So we have Hymenolepsis, which only requires one host, which is the human being, and this guy belongs to the it belongs to the Cyclophilidian order. Then we have Diphyllobothrium, which belongs to the Pseudophilidium order, and it requires three hosts. We have the first host, which is the definitive host, which is the human being. Then we have the second host, which is the first intermediate host, which are Cyclops. Wait, Cyclops? Do we mean this guy? Well, so in description, Cyclops are simply one-eyed organisms, but we don't mean this guy here. These are tiny, cute creatures. Hopefully they are cute, but they are just single-eyed organisms, all right, but not this guy here. Then we have the second intermediate host, which is the fish, all right, so which makes it three hosts to complete their life cycle. Okay, so the moment of truth is here, where we get to answer some questions and see whether we've understood. Question number 1, write true or false for the following statements below. Echinococcus granulosus is a dog tapeworm that requires one intermediate host to complete its life cycle. This is true. Remember that Echinococcus granulosus has got one definitive host, which is the dog, and one intermediate host, which is the human. Diphyllobothrium latam requires 3 intermediate hosts with one definitive host. This is false because Diphyllobothrium latam requires only 2 intermediate hosts with one definitive host. Okay. Proglottids of cestodes are dioecious. This is totally false because remember that cestodes are monoecious. Cyclophilidian parasites contain longitudinal grooves called bothrium used for attachment to host mucosa. This is false because Cyclophilidian parasites do not contain bothrium. Instead they contain suckers. The ones that contain bothrium are the Pseudophilidian parasites. Tenia solium has a rostrum armed with hooks used to attach firmly to the host mucosa. This is true. The eggs of Cyclophilidian parasites has 2 coverings. This is true. The proglottids of cestodes located posteriorly are gravid. This is true, right? Then embryos of cestodes are also called hexacans embryos. This is true. Cestodes completely do not have a body but has a rudimentary alimentary canal. This is false. Remember that the ones that contain a rudimentary and alimentary canal are the trematodes. Yes, cestodes do not have a body cavity and neither do they have a rudimentary alimentary canal. Number 10. In cestode species without a neck, similar kinds of cells in the posterior part of the scolex give rise to new proglottids. This is true. Right. Cestodes can fertilize themselves. This is true because they are monoecious. Remember? The strobila of cestodes contains suckers. This is totally false because the strobila is the body and the body contains proglottids and not suckers. Alright, so this is where we end our video. I hope you enjoyed and I hope it was informative. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and check out our videos on Helminthology series, and also drop a comment in the comment box as we end. Enjoy your day, night or evening. Shalom, shalom.